Okay, we're here today with Linda HAISLIP. Today is the 10th of December 2006. And if you could just start out by telling me what year you were born and where?
Born in 47 at St. Joseph's Hospital in Tampa.
Tampa.
May the 19th for all of you who want to send me a card.
And what about your mom?
Where was she born and when? She was born October 28th of 1916, and she was born in Ozona, Florida.
Okay, and your father?
And Dad was born February 21st of 1915 in Gordon, Alabama.
And do you know why your dad moved to Florida?
His family moved when he was very little. His dad was working for the railroad, and he was telegrapher, and I believe they moved down for that reason.
And do you know what your mother's maiden name was?
Kersey.
Do you know how your father and mother met?
Yes, they were going to a little church. At the time they met, Dad's father was working on a railroad in the Clearwater area, and so Mom and Dad were both going to a church. I think it was the Methodist church downtown, First Methodist of Clearwater. And one of the funny stories is that Dad had dark curly hair, and so he joined the youth group, and he used a fake Spanish accent. So, he was some, mysterious Spanish stranger when Mother met him.
Do you happen to know how he proposed to your mom?
I know, I don't. I surely wish I did. That's a good question. I wish I had asked them, huh?
How many years were they married, approximately?
Yeah, 60-something.
Okay. And do you know where your relatives, going back before they came to America, do you know what country they were from?
Just the Scotland, Ireland thing.
Okay. Can you tell me something that your mother taught you that's always stuck with you?
I don't know if you have enough tape. Let me try to think. I'm not good at thinking of things off the top of my head. What did she teach me, Richard, it's always stuck with me?
Any values that she tried to get you to really...
boy, I'm going to teach my children values and say, okay, if you ever give an interview, I'm sure she must have done that. But I can't think of any.
That's fine, that's fine.
She just lived especially toward, in later years, she was just very kind and very open to listening to people. And that certainly is something I picked up from her in later years.
Okay. Do you know what your father did for a living?
Yeah, he did various things. He was a barber, was probably the main thing. And he also worked as a real estate salesman. And he sold shoes for all, but mainly he was a barber. What did he do at the end?
Tampa Ship.
Oh yeah, Tampa Shipyard. He would always want me to mention that. That was during the war.
Did he discipline you by spanking? Or...
Yes, spanking. Yes.
Did he use his hand or a belt?
Yes, both.
And how often did he have to use those on you?
Well, really probably not very often, but more than once.
Did your mom have any heirlooms that maybe she passed on to you that she had got from her mother?
No, she didn't. I know my cousin Gloria has a ring that belonged to, because she was on Mom's side also, was Mom's sister's daughter, and it was our great-grandmother. It's a ring. It's a diamond ring. She has it. That she wants me to take it, so I probably will the next time she offers it.
And was your mom good at any crafts or cooking?
Both, but she was just an excellent seamstress. She could just do anything. It's the old famous proverbial feed sack kind of thing. She made lots of outfits. And I know there was a picture of her in a very smart suit that she made for herself out of a suit that was Dad's that had worn down, and she cut it apart, and then, you know, took the seams apart and then cut the, because some of it had worn, like the knees had worn in Dad's trousers, and she made herself a suit, and she made the kids' clothes, and yeah, she was an excellent seamstress and a cook. She could, you know, she could just combine things and, you know, leftovers, and it would taste good. I tried that a few times because she always made it look easy, but I never really combined anything that tasted good when I did it. So I usually just stick to the. But Mother was excellent in cooking and seamstress.
As far as cooking, did you all typically have dinner together as a family?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Was it more talking, or did you watch TV ever during meals?
Well, on when TV first came out, we lived in Plant City, and we got our television, and Gunsmoke was on Saturday night. So we didn't, but on Gunsmoke night, on Saturday night, the thing was we had hamburgers in the living room watching Gunsmoke. So that was the big thing on Saturday night. But otherwise, it was, you know, I think in later years, Dad liked to watch the news during dinner, but mostly we didn't do, you know, because we had a dining room and there was no TV in the dining room. You only had one TV, so you had to go in where it was.
Okay. And do you know the education that your parents got? Did they go to college or high school? Or?
No, Dad started college up in Gainesville. He had an uncle who was going to pay for him to become a dentist, I think. And Dad just liked, he, up in that area there was a barber who just really seemed to have it all together. And he had a pool room in the back, and he dressed snazzy, and it was just a really cool life being a barber. So Dad actually dropped out of Gainesville, which would have been paid for him, and went to barber school. So that was what Dad did. And Mother, somebody had offered her a scholarship at the church she was going to, and because she was very, very intelligent, and had offered some kind of scholarship or to pay her way, and she married Dad. So
okay.
It was.
So she was a stay-at-home mom when you were growing up?
Yeah, mostly when we were growing up. She did definitely when we were little, and then toward after we were in elementary school, they had a little. It was called the Burgerette. It was a little hamburger restaurant, and they did that for a while. And then she became a lunchroom lady, and so she worked in the schools. She was cafeteria lady in the lunchrooms where I went to school and Bill went to school.
Now, did you go to school in Tampa?
Plant City. Yeah, I was born in Tampa. We lived here in Ozona till I was 5. Then we moved to Plant City till I was 15.
Okay.
And so she was a cafeteria lady in Plant City, and then she was a cafeteria lady over here in Palm Harbor too.
Did you ever go to the same school where she was working?
Yeah, it was very neat in Plant City at the elementary school. She was a cafeteria lady there. But after over here, not. But Bill, my younger brother, he did go to Palm Harbor Middle School, or junior high it was, and she was cafeteria lady there.
Okay. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
Just 3 brothers, no sisters.
Can you give me their names?
Lee is the oldest, and Ray, and Bill is my younger brother.
Okay. So there's 2 older and 1 younger.
Yep.
Do you have any funny stories as they were growing up? If we just go in order from the oldest to the youngest, any funny stories that particularly stick out?
Well, the one that Mom would probably tell was starting with my older brother, and I was very young. I was just a toddler, and he got a very severe ear infection. My oldest brother did, Lee, and it just was awful, and they had to take him to the doctor because it was so bad, and they found a button down inside his ear, and I mean, Mother tried to guess how, maybe he was sleeping in the bed and it had fallen out and he rolled over and it flipped into his ear. Well, several weeks later, I was very little. I was not even in kindergarten. I was just like 3 years old. And she said, just out of nowhere one day, I said, one day Sonny, that was what we called Lee, one day Sonny was taking a nap, and I found a button and I just dropped it in his ear. So that's probably the story she would tell. With Ray, It's not, I can't think of anything too terribly funny. He used to enjoy scaring the life out of me by telling the scariest, spooky stories he could tell. When I was just like, he was looking after me, and he would tell me scary stories, and see how really frightening I can be. Remember being frightened of those scary stories. Bill, there ought to be. Bill and I got, we were closer in age, and so I cannot think. I'm not. You should have done this 20 years ago when I had more memory, but I can't think of anything that. But I'm sure because Bill and I used to laugh a lot, but I forget why we were laughing. So
how much younger is he than you?
4 years, I believe.
Did you watch after him, take care of him any?
Yeah. Not a lot, but I mean, I can remember having to, when he was a baby, still in his crib, and I had to sit beside his crib while he went to sleep in the afternoon, and I had to sit there until he went to sleep before I could go out and play. I remember being very resentful. I don't think it was probably not very long, but it seemed like a long time to me sitting there beside his crib.
Let's see here. Okay, going back to your childhood. What's your earliest memory?
My earliest memory is Mom hanging laundry on the line. This was when we lived in Ozona. Have no idea. I would guess maybe 2. I was small enough to fit into a metal tub about this big, and it had water. And it was a hot day, and she just let me sit in a tub of water out beside her while she hung clothes on the line.
And as far as the Clearwater area, when you were, or you said you lived in Tampa till you were 5?
No, Plant City. I was born at the hospital in Tampa, but they lived in Ozona. It was just a better hospital to go to.
Okay. Can you tell me what Ozona was like when you were a child? Or Palm Harbor or Clearwater?
Well, we left when I was 5, so I don't really remember that much at that time. It was certainly, I remember, because Sonny and Terrell that's my brothers, were in Scouts. And I can remember going out for campouts, or it wasn't a camp out, they would camp out, but the families would come. And they would cook. I can remember they cooked rice pudding over a campfire, and it was just out in big open fields with, I can remember we would go cut Christmas trees just out in the woods. And so in those kind of same woods, they would do the campouts and things like that. It was just, I remember Wall Springs and swimming at Wall Springs, which was just a marvelous, you know where Wall Springs is? Oh, it was just a little north of, it was right up in Alternate 19, and just a little north of Crystal Beach. Okay. And it was an actual freshwater spring that actually flowed out to because it's on right up next to the ocean, so it's flowed out to the ocean.
You can remember being able to charge it at Adair's grocery, can't you?
No. You can remember charging it at Adair's grocery.
I don't know if you ever did, but I remember when you could.
No, I can't remember that. I'm sure, I wasn't involved in buying things.
When?
I don't remember it, though. I don't.
Who did you play with when you were a kid? Was it mainly your brothers, or did you have a lot of other friends in the neighborhood?
Over here, just a little friend from Ozona Baptist Church, Becky Henderson. I remember her. But then over in Plant, that's the only people over here was just Gloria, my cousin, and Becky Henderson. And then when we moved to Plant City, then I had some childhood friends after I started school.
Okay. What religion did your parents raise you in?
At Baptist.
Baptist. And did you go to church every week or twice a week?
Definitely. If you went to church twice a week, you were just like really a religious person. But no, just once a week, Sunday mornings, First Baptist Church of Plant City, and we were Ozona Baptist Church when we lived over here before we moved to Plant City.
Would you say that your mother or your father was more religious than the other?
It was always interesting because Mother, and I didn't even think about this at the time, but just looking back, Mother never went to church on Sunday because she would stay to have lunch ready. Dad always took us to church and went to church himself. But as far as my formative years, you know, Mother was more of a, you know, serious-minded about the Bible. In later years, Dad, too, became very, you know, a very good Bible student.
Okay. And when you were in school, were you particularly good at any one subject?
Well, I know I was very bad in geometry, but no, I was pretty good in most subjects.
What was your favorite?
Probably English. You know, I loved when we had music and we could sing, you know, because we had a music teacher that would come around, especially in elementary school, and I loved the singing parts and harmony and all that. But no, probably English. I loved reading stories and then writing about them.
Okay.
But sadly, I didn't enjoy history. They didn't, you know, history was very boring the way they used to teach it. But now looking back, I would love to have learned more history.
Mm-hmm. Did your parents make you do chores?
Yes. I had to vacuum. And of course I had to make my bed, and I don't remember, I really never had to do the dishes that I remember very much. But I had to vacuum every weekend. I had to vacuum the house.
Y'all didn't have any animals around?
Dogs usually, one dog at a time. You know, it would get run over and you'd get another dog. And so, I mean,
Not the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I know. Really, that probably only happened. Well, I can only remember it happened for sure once, but it was very traumatic, so that's why. One dog had cancer, and but we usually, Dad loved a dog, so we always had a dog.
Okay. Do you remember any of the games you played as a child?
Loved to jump rope, did hopscotch on the sidewalk. You'd do those outdoor tag games, Red Rover. There's a lot of, you know, just those simple kind of games outside were fun.
Okay. I don't remember any of these myself, but do you remember any bedtime stories that your parents told, or did they make them up, or did they read?
No, Dad was big on the Goldilocks and the Three Bears, real big on them. As far as bedtime, no, we didn't have a bedtime ritual. I think that's a nice thing to have, but no, it was usually it's time for bed, good night. But no, Dad was a great. Now, Mom didn't really. I guess she was like always so busy doing something, but Dad liked to tell Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Little Red Riding Hood. Those were his two big ones, and then once in a while the Three Little Pigs.
Okay. And when you were a child, did you have any dreams of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
From early times, I decided I wanted to be a teacher. I figured I'd be a nurse or a teacher, and then when I was very young, I want to say third grade, somewhere in there, I had pneumonia and I was in the hospital. And you know, back then you just had a whole ward of children. There was probably, I don't know, there could have been 8 beds in there, maybe just 6. But there was a nurse came in with a tray of hypodermic needles, and I thought, okay, I know I'm getting one and I don't like it, but I'm going to watch somebody else get one. Oh man, I couldn't even bear to watch that needle go in that person's skin, and I thought, okay, I can't be a nurse because I can't do this. So it was, yeah, I wanted to be a teacher.
Okay. Other than pneumonia, were you ever really sick any other time?
Well, I had asthma, so I was kind of chronically in the first 10 years, 12 years, chronically bothered with some kind of respiratory problems.
Okay. And did anything really strange or unusual happen when you were a kid?
Oh, yes. Saw an unidentified flying object. And I'm so glad my cousin Gloria, who was 4 or 5 years older than I am, was spending the night with her. It was right over there. It was in Arizona. And what's now Palm Harbor, but we called it Ozona then. It was just right across 19. She and I were in her room. We were just laying there in the bed. It was dark. Her mom and dad were in the bedroom next to us. And we were talking. And we just looked out the window, and there was this big orange circle. It just seemed like, because it was like a tree, like a citrus tree right outside her window. And it just seemed to be up in the sky close to that citrus tree. and we just looked at it. I mean, I don't even remember what we said to each other, but we just laid there looking at it. Now, this was before TV, before movies. I didn't know anything about those kind of things. I was like 6 years old or something. And it was so startling. And then we just looked at it. And then all of a sudden it just took off like that. It just like, it was just hovering, and then it just zing. And now her mom and dad, or especially her dad, was a grouchy man. But we were so shocked and amazed, we just jumped out of the bed, ran right through their bedroom to find, to try to find it in the sky. And it had just taken off like a flash.
Huh.
So, but I mean, I have asked her in recent years, did we really see one? Because I go, yeah, we did. We did. So that was unusual.
Did you tell your parents about it, and did they
I'm
believe
sure
you?
I told Mom, and I think, I wish I had asked Mom. I don't know. I just assumed she did. I don't know. But it was really before, and it was, and I said 6. I was earlier than 6, because it was in the early 50s. I was 4 or 5. Nah, I was around 5.
Okay. Did you ever pull any pranks or practical jokes on anybody?
No, I'm not. I don't know how to do that. It's just not my gift. I don't know how to do that.
Okay. Well, it's almost Christmas time. How did you all celebrate Christmas when you were a child?
Oh, well, Dad was a big Christmas person, so he always, I mean, when I got married, he'd have still had me believing in Santa Claus if he could have, because he just loved to keep that going. And we had to do the cookies for Santa Claus, and you had to, I do remember, he had me make a list one year of things. Yeah, I had to write a list so he could give to Santa Claus. And I put some items on the list, don't remember what they were, but I know that I didn't get them. And I remember making a deal about it, saying something. I mean, here, I gave this list to Santa Claus, and I didn't get anything on the list. And he never asked me to make a list anymore. But no, it was very exciting to have, and Dad would make it like, he'd seen Santa. And he had me believing so much that I can still remember thinking that I saw, oh yeah, that's what it was. When somebody tried to tell me, and I'm not sure how old I was, 3rd grade or so, that there was no Santa Claus, I can remember saying to them, I know there is, because I saw him out the window. And in my mind, I can remember seeing him like in the sky with his sleigh. It was just a picture I'd seen, but in my mind it was real. So I know he's real because I saw him.
Did you all ever go on vacation together?
Yes, we went to. Now I went out all the way out to Mexico, California and Mexico, Arizona, the Painted Desert, and those kind of things. When I was so little, I barely remember, but I do remember traveling through the desert and being very hot and thirsty. But that was with my mom and her mom and dad. But yeah, Dad, we went to Memphis to see his mom and his sister a few times. That was the main vacation we took. He liked to go on picnics though, so we would go on picnics on a regular basis.
Okay. And as you got a little bit older, do you remember your first date?
Yes, I do.
How old were you?
It was 1960. I was 13. It was with him.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was, it was, not where we went off by ourselves, but it was Gloria, again, my cousin, and her boyfriend, they could drive. And it was to the Easter sunrise service. At that time, we had already moved to Plant City, but on Easter, we would always come over here and visit my grandmother and cousin and everything. So I had come over on the Saturday night before, and Richard, was a Pharisee, I believe, in the Plum Harbor.
Something bad.
Yeah. Easter sunrise service. And so Gloria and I got up. Now when you go to the Easter sunrise service, you just go in your slacks or just like get up and go, and then later you get ready for church. But no, Gloria and I got up really early, and we just like dolled whatever we were wearing, our Easter dresses and our hats and everything. So that was my first date.
And did you continue to date Richard?
Yeah, or not. I mean, you know, there were some breaks where we each saw other people, but I mean, that was sort of the beginning, and
You know the end.
you know, that's right.
Oh, we're missing some details there. How do you propose to you?
Oh, well, it was. Can he tell that? He doesn't remember.
I do too.
Do you really?
You know where we was at?
I remember where we were at. We were under those big oak trees. Is that what you were going to say? Oh. Well, I remember something. That's where I told you I would marry you. It was
Yeah.
something about those great big oaks. Because I
Mhm.
remember the great big oaks.
Well,
Okay. Do you mind if he fills in the blanks?
Sure, if you want to get on the couch or get some lights on.
no, just she can repeat it.
Okay. Can I just
Sure.
repeat it?
Where I asked you was down there, but the little shed where I fed cows.
You know what? That is exactly right. I do remember that. And I didn't say yes at that time.
Not right that minute.
See, I'm seriously, those bouts of asthma and pneumonia and because I would, you know, really be oxygen deprived for periods of time because I would go for a long time and not be able to get a full breath. And honestly, I do believe it sounds funny, it's like an excuse, but I honestly believe that it did damage my memory because I can't remember things. Even in when I took piano as a young girl, I couldn't, when, you know, you're supposed to do one big long piece and then one piece from memory. Oh, I had such a difficult time when it was the memory. I just, even as a little girl, I had a hard time memorizing music. And so, anyway, but I don't know why I didn't answer him yes at the time. Do you remember?
Scared you, I guess.
How long had you dated before he asked you?
Well,
49 years.
we started dating in 1960, and he proposed. Wow, that's funny. I'd never really thought about it like that before. He proposed in 69. I mean, so when you look at life now, that's like not much time. But it seemed like we dated forever and ever and ever, didn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you were 21 or 22 when he proposed?
I guess I was 22. It was in the Christmas season. I didn't mark the exact day, but it was in this season right here.
And how long were you engaged before you got married?
About 6 months. He proposed in December.
I actually think it was the 19th of December.
Well, I thought it was in the teens, 17, 18, 19. So,
You know, I remember.
oh well. No, I didn't.
And where'd you go on your honeymoon?
Don't
Tennessee.
ask that.
Tennessee.
That was my first mistake.
That's my first mistake. Why don't you ask me about what we did on was it the New Year's Eve, right after we got engaged, and we went up to Dorn's Hideaway?
Oh gosh, I think it was, yeah.
You know, here we were newly engaged. It was very exciting. It was a Christmas season, and it was all wonderful. So it was New Year's Eve. And we had seen this place driving up when you used to go to Moon Lake, the Baptist, you know, kids camp up around Moon Lake, and you'd go by this place that was called Dorn's Hideaway. It wasn't a fancy looking place, but it was out under the trees, and there had been an old song called Hernando's Hideaway, and it was very, you know, I love the song. It was just an old song back from the 40s. And so I thought, oh, that would be a fun place to go on our, you know. So this place, we go Dorn's Hideaway, and we go in, and it's real rustic looking, and I don't mean in a good way. It's not good looking. I don't know what, I can't really explain why our thought processes. It didn't look like a good place, but we nevertheless went in and sat down, and we ordered. And we ordered, I forget what the main course was, some kind of shrimp is what we ordered. But first of all, they brought us like a salad platter, appetizer platter. And I mean, the lettuce was like, it's so wilted and brown. The vegetables were all like dried up. I mean, it was horrible looking. We're just like, this is horrible. But we're just, you know, we don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, I guess. I'm not sure. And then the next thing we notice is there's people out there dancing. A guy was dancing with a guy, and a girl was dancing with a girl. And I'm going, yeah, we have come. I mean, this was 69. I mean, we just, you know. So that just makes a good story to tell. It wasn't I don't even think we finished eating after we saw that. We got up and we drove, and I think we ate at the Park Terrace in Clearwater, which was a little diner across from
The courthouse.
the courthouse there.
Do you know if Richard asked your dad for permission to ask you to marry?
No, he wouldn't speak to me.
No, he didn't. It would have been a gallant thing to do, but no, we didn't even think about it.
Okay. Did your mom help you plan the wedding?
Yes, she made the dress, and it had pearls from my grandmother's wedding. Not pearls, lace. It had lace that was on my grandmother's wedding dress. And well, I was going to say Mary Nigel. You remember Mary Nigel? She helped sort of put it together.
Okay. How many, was there a lot? Was it a big wedding or just a small one?
Not really. It wasn't. I won't guess if you would call it tiny. It was at the church, and just everybody from the church from Pearly Baptist was invited, and probably 200 people. I mean, the church was full, so that was nice. So however many people the church will hold, about that many people were there.
And as a teenager, what did you like to do for fun?
Loved to dance. It was just, that was just always my thing I loved to do.
What kind of music was?
Rock and roll. Was there ever anything but rock and roll? From the time I heard Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock, and I mean, I wasn't very old, maybe 9 years old. I was just rock and roll. That was it. My brothers liked Hank Williams, and I had heard all that, until before, and also, well, I said rock and roll, but I had grown up with my brothers listening to the country, hillbilly music it was called, and Mom and Dad listened to the big band, the 40s, the 30s, and I love that. I still love that. I love, the big band sound. But at the time, once rock and roll hit, I just didn't want to hear anything but rock and roll for many years until I was, somewhere probably
50.
in my 30s. In my 30s. So it was just rock and roll.
Did you ever go to any concerts like Elvis or any big concerts?
Never got to an Elvis concert. Got to see Elvis, he made a autograph signing tour at Weeki Wachee Springs in 1960, I believe, when he was promoting the movie Follow That Train. And I did get to go see him and get his autograph. I never got to go to his concert. The tickets, I can remember, I think the last concert he came through here, and I think we were already married, and the tickets were, I think I'm telling this correct, I think they were $15 a ticket. I thought, that's just way too much money. And that just seems so hilarious now. But
Well, $15 was a bunch.
I know it was. But when I'm looking at the Eagles when they came through last time and what their tickets were, but we went, Richard and I especially, and this was before Richard. This was, not before he and I got together, but I don't think you went with me that night when the Stones appeared, the Rolling Stones appeared. What's that ball stadium in Clearwater? Anyway.
Coliseum?
No, not the baseball stadium. It was open air.
Jack Russell?
Jack Russell Stadium. The Rolling Stones appeared at Jack Russell, and probably Carolyn Register and I are the ones that went. So I got to see the Stones, but about halfway through the concert, the crowd just broke through the barriers, and so they called the concert, and
Wow.
but I didn't get to see. But we got to see, I've seen the Beach Boys, and I've gotten to see some good, and I did like folk music once it came out, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and the Kingston Trio, and Bob Dylan, so that was in my junior and senior year. So,
Did your family ever sing together around a piano or anything?
I think, not Mom. Mom was always busy, either ironing or cleaning or cooking or something, but I do remember playing the piano and Dad singing, and my brothers singing sometime. I don't ever remember Mom joining in.
How'd you learn to play the piano? Did you take lessons?
Yes. Started in the 3rd grade and took till I guess I was in the 9th grade.
Okay. And did your high school have dances other than like prom?
Well, we had the homecoming dance and prom, and I guess that was the main dances, that I can remember.
Okay. Did you ever play any sports in high school?
Not like on the team, but for PE we would play, basketball and volleyball. I loved all those things, but they didn't. I don't think they had a girls' team back then. Did they at Dunedin?
Oh,
I don't think so. Don't think they did at Plant City High either.
Did you ever have a job in high school?
No, don't think I did. Once I got into college, I did a little bit. I did some tutoring, you know, like for a boy during the summer, and it seemed like I had some other job, but I can't remember what it was. But anyway, nothing.
Where'd you go to college?
That's JC in South Florida,
Okay. And what was your major?
elementary ed.
Okay. And I assume you became a teacher.
Yes.
How many years did you teach?
Just as a full-time regular first grade teacher, 2 years. 1 year before we got married and 1 year after we got married. Then was a full-time mom until the kids got into school, and I did some volunteering for a couple of years when James actually, no, not when James was when James was in kindergarten. I did some volunteering. John would always, you know, you could bring your kids then, and John would always be with me. Then after they got a little older, I decided to do substitute teaching. And so when I did that, I taught every grade, including some of the emotionally handicapped children as a substitute teacher. But I started working, you know, they just had me working all the time. And I was missing some of the things the kids were doing, like they'd go on a field trip. I couldn't go because I was teaching, and so I quit teaching and just became a full-time volunteer, not full-time, but just a volunteer.
Okay. Can you tell me, when you got pregnant with James, did you have any fears? Were you worried, or how'd you prepare?
Well, let's see, James. Because the big phrase back then was threshold of pain. I read that somewhere, and you know, people talked about having a low threshold of pain. I thought, well, that's what I have. I have a very low threshold of pain. But I just was just nothing but healthy things. Just they had prenatal vitamins, and I just drank a ton of milk and orange juice, and so I didn't go to Lamaze with James or anything. But then when I was pregnant with John, Richard and I took childbirth classes for John. So.
Okay. Lost my train of thought. I had something I was going to ask you. Let me read.
Go right ahead. You can edit all this, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. I'll
be
take that
kind
part
when
out.
you edit.
Oh, did you find out if it was going to be a boy or girl before
No.
the birth?
They didn't even. They did have amniocentesis. They could do that, but that was only done if they suspected, as far as I knew, if they suspected some kind of problem. So no, we didn't know in either situation if we were going to have a boy or a girl. So.
Did you have any names picked out?
Yeah. I can't remember if with the first one I had a girl's name picked out.
yeah, Alana.
Well, I knew it for John, but maybe I did from the beginning. I had a girl, Joy Ilana. It was going to be mom's name, Isla, Ilana. So that was Joy Ilana, and that was going to be a girl's name. But it was always James Floyd, and then I expected John to be a girl. And when he was born, they said something about the little boy, and I'm looking around because I'm in the delivery room, and I think, there's nobody else in here. I mean, there must be somebody else in here. Somebody had a boy, because I had a girl, I'm sure. But anyway, so his name just, you know, with the Bible names of James and John, his name just sort of naturally flowed. I wanted him to be named after his dad, because James was named after his dad, so it was just easy to fall into John Richard.
Okay. And did you have to discipline them at all?
I did, but I didn't do it very much. I thought they were just perfect, so. But I did. I mean, you know, I probably did it more than it seems like I did in my mind, because I can remember being tired and being annoyed and them annoying me, but I can remember that happening, but in my mind it's just like they were just so good all the time that I didn't hardly ever have to.
Can you tell me a funny story about James when he was like
God,
under 10 years old?
I'm sure I ought to be able to. You know, if you should have asked me
Talk
these
about
things.
when he thought running in the grass made it rain.
Oh, yeah, that was so cute. See, I leave time to think of good things because I don't have a mind that comes to. But yeah, when he was maybe 2, he was able to walk and toddle around. And we were watching him out the back window at Mom's, and he was just kind of running in a circle through some high grass. And as he ran through this patch of grass, you know how little fast showers will move? It sprinkled rain. And he stopped and he looked up and he thought something about running through that grass. Because he kept running through the grass and looking up and expecting it to rain on him again. So that was something cute. And then one time, he was probably 2 or 3. He was probably 3. And I knew what he had in mind. He climbed up on his slide. He had a big metal slide outside. And he had his lawnmower, his little toy lawnmower. And he lugged it up the top of the slide. And he sat down and he had the lawnmower in front of him. And in his mind, he thought that lawnmower was going to propel him down the slide. But he just sat up there and goes, you know, he could just see, now what? You know, it was, but I knew what he had in mind.
What about John? Anything stick out?
Well, Richard needs to stay because he can remember things. I mean, I can't.
That's fine.
I mean, you know, there's got to be a million things. They were funny, and I do have on paper. I've written down and couldn't put my hand on it, but I've given each of them a copy, so they'll just funny things that they would say. That I'm blank on right now.
Did they play together pretty well? Together?
They did. James, you know, was liked being the bigger brother that, you know, sort of controlled the situation. And John, you know, looked up to him greatly, to wanted to be like him and do everything that he did. So. But I think, and one of the really neat things is when we would go on trips and go on long drives in the car, or from here to Tennessee, long ones, they would be in the back seat, and honestly, we never had any problem with them. They could make up games, and I wish to goodness, I even thought at the time, I thought, you know, I need to write this down, but then I thought, no, that's so clever, I'm going to remember it. They would make up games, make up rules, and make up games, and just amuse themselves from here to Tennessee and back with games they made up.
When they were being born, did you have to rush to the hospital, or?
Oh, let's see how that went. With James, no, I didn't really have to rush, especially with James. I thought I had been in labor for a long time. I thought I'd really progressed well because I was at home for hours. And finally, I thought, you know, it's getting pretty serious. We need to go to the hospital. So we went to the hospital. I think it was around midnight we got there. And he was born at noon the next day. So I was there all night long. But with John, it was kind of just the opposite. I was in labor a little bit at the house. And then it just got really bad. I can't remember how it was, but it got real intense. And so it was a cold. It was the coldest night of the year. It was January 15th. It was the coldest night of the year. And we had the old green Torino, and the gaskets were all gone. What did we have?
The old blue Fairlane.
The blue Fairlane. But the gaskets were gone. I was only looking at the gaskets because
the heater didn't work either.
And the heater didn't work. I mean, it was cold all the way down to Clearwater, all the way down to Morton Plant. And I mean, it was cold. I was so cold. And in labor. And I mean, I just was in such labor, I didn't think I could get from the car into the hospital. And, you know, Richard and I had been to the childbirth classes, so he was going to be able to be in the room when John was born. But I mean, they put me in the labor room and tried to get the IV in, and then left me, and I could just feel John was being born. I said, somebody better come help me. So actually, John was like born in transit. They just started rolling my bed into the delivery room, and poor Richard, somebody said, go put your gown on, you know. So he was rushing to put a gown and mask on. In the meantime, John was born. Well, what the nurse said to him was, you didn't make it. That's what, you know, she said, you didn't make it, you know, meaning you didn't get ready in time. But he thought that she said they didn't make it. And so, I mean, just for a few seconds, he was just completely freaked.
Wow.
But those were those stories.
Did you read any books on how best to raise a child?
I read, no, I didn't, not on child raising. I read, because I had, in going through college and doing all that early childhood education, you read a lot. And I did have Dr. Spock for various kinds of medical things. But no, just the things I had learned in early childhood and just sort of natural, just loving. I just felt like, just loving them and being there for them, and that was the overall thrust of how I did it.
Did you ask your mom for advice on how best to raise them?
No, I didn't.
Really?
I didn't even think about asking her. We should have done this like 35 years ago, and then I could have asked some questions. Can you think of something funny John did when he was little?
Oh,
like this?
yeah.
Good, tell me.
You suppose she doesn't know what similar means?
Oh, see? I knew. Yeah, this is one of the great stories. And I tell it all the time, but when you ask me, my brain just goes blank. He was 3 because James was 5 in kindergarten. And this goes back to your question. I don't know how you're going to edit this tape. This goes back to your question about John doing something funny when he was little. And we were at Ozona Elementary for some kind of a little get-together. And I think it was sort of school-wide because there was a lot of teachers. It wasn't just kindergarten. We were in the cafeteria, and we were eating cookies, and there were teachers in there, and the kids in there, and parents. And so John and I were sitting together eating cookies at the table, and there was one of the teachers was sitting across from us, and John just said to me, "This cookie is similar to one that you make." Now he's 3, and he says, "This cookie is similar to one you make, Mom." And the teacher sitting across from him said to him, "Do you know what similar means?" And he just looked at her and he didn't say anything, and he just leans over to me and goes in a quiet voice, "Mom, do you suppose she doesn't know what similar means?" Thank you, that's a great story.
Was James or John more outgoing than the other one as children?
It's very interesting. James was very outgoing. In my opinion, he seemed just like very outgoing. I mean, he liked to be involved in kind of running the show and everything. John was more quiet, a little bit more shy. This was when they were much younger. Somewhere, and this was early. I remember John's 2nd grade when it was some kind of a program at school, when I first noticed that John was able to sort of hold his own, and he had some kind of a part on stage, and he went out and was supposed to say, all the parents and everybody's out there, and he forgot his line, and he just said, "Well, it looks like I should have spent a little more time studying my lines." Just like the 2nd grader is just so composed. "Looks like I should have spent a little more time." I'm going, okay, he's going to be all right in the world, so.
When you were raising them, did you ever have any concerns about not having enough money to get them into college or just in general?
I wish I honestly don't remember. You'd think if I had a brain I would have been concerned about that. I honestly don't remember thinking about. It's not that I must have thought about it. I don't remember spending a lot of time worrying about it. I don't know what to say. Did we ever talk about it?
I don't think we ever worried about it.
Okay. And how important was it for you to get James and John into church right from the beginning?
Oh, Ashley, that's an area I really was one of my big failings. It was very important to me. It was very important to me, but not for a deep enough reason. It wasn't just for looks. It wasn't just, they're going to expect me to have the baby there. But I just didn't have a real healthy relationship with God myself. And so I didn't know how just important it was to and I can remember, I read back over some of the, little journals I kept. So I've read that I did speak to God, speak to them about God. And so, I was glad that I wrote that down, because I don't remember being as good an example and as good a teacher about God that I wish I had been to them.
Can you tell me when you were first baptized?
First baptized? I was first baptized in the 6th grade. That was just one of the, that was just, well, in the book I call it, and I've always thought about it, is Get the Kids Sunday. It was like during a revival, and they, rounded up all the kids and put them in a little group and told them how bad hell was, and don't you want to be saved? Yeah. So, but that was, that was just, nah, that was just because everybody else was doing it, and I wanted to be with everybody else. Then when I was really baptized, I honestly can't tell you, I think it was the summertime, and James was born.
Yeah, he's about.
It was before John was born, so
Well, James was maybe a year old.
Yeah. So that's when I was baptized for real.
Okay. And do you have a favorite Bible verse?
Oh wow. I have a whole bunch. The first one that pops into my mind is in Psalm 40, that I waited patiently on the Lord. He inclined unto me and heard my cry, and he lifted me up out of the miry pit. I could never do this without crying. And he set my feet on a solid rock, and he gave me a new song. So, like I said, there's a whole bunch of them, but that one always comes to me because it's like taking me from the depths and then putting me on solid ground and giving me a new song. For James and John, I always think of Psalm 139 because that's the one that talks about where can, when your kids grow up and they go away, and then or even when they're still at home, but they're in school, or they go out on dates or something, and you wonder how they are. But this one, Psalm 139, talks about, where can I go from your spirit? You can't go anywhere from God's spirit. Wherever they are, God's spirit's with them. So that's what I think about for them. And then the night that James was born, mother came down. This was my first baby, so she, mom was going to sit there. And like I told you, I was there all night long, and she'd been there for a long time, sitting out in the waiting room, and she was tired. And she was reading her Bible, and she read Psalm 27. It's either 27 or 127, but I think it's 27. And she read, unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. And unless the Lord keeps the city, the watchmen wait in vain. And she, she felt like the Lord was saying, you're sitting up here waiting and worrying, and I'm in there. I'm taking care of her. You can just go on home. So I always think about that song for Mom.
Did you have any aspirations for James and John in general, or?
I tried very hard not to, because that was one of the things that I didn't know. I didn't want to live my life through them, and I didn't want to preconceive some lifestyle or career for them. I did want them to just be exactly what was most fulfilling and most whatever they were designed to do. I know, and I think John was in high school, and he kept talking about being a mailman. He was an excellent student. He was all this stuff, and he kept saying, yeah, I want to be a mailman. Well, the teachers were freaking out. They were coming to me and saying, you can't let that boy be a mailman. And I thought to myself, if he really could be happy being a mailman, then I want him to be a mailman. But, he'll either grow out of this thought, which he did. But, so I did try not to think too much about what I wanted them to be. I just wanted them to be what they should be.
Okay. Can you tell me one or two things that you're very proud of James that he's done?
No, I can't tell you one or two things that I'm very proud of James. No, I mean, I'm just amazed at him. He was really one of the ones who got me seriously studying God's Word. And I am just, he just, I was amazed at how much he learned the Bible and how well he knew it. And he still amazes me. I could say, I was thinking about this verse that's sort of like this, and I can't, and he'll know what it is and where it is, and and he just really got serious-minded about God's word and about trying to live the way the Bible says for us to live as Christians. So, but he's so, you know, what? He's so kind. He's so generous. He's so amazingly giving, and no, I can't tell you one or two things. It just amazes me.
And what about with John? Does
And
anything
John,
stick out?
yeah, really, it's just, they're both so generous. They're so giving. They're so thoughtful and helpful. I mean, even when they were little, and I still have this note John put on the dirty clothes one time when I got their dirty clothes out, and he had taped a note to the laundry that said, "Thanks, Mom." I mean, you know. So, but no, they're just, and you know, you were specifically asking about John. I mean, he can do anything he decides. I think that he decided to do. I mean, he could just like look at something and figure out how it works. He used to, this was when he was like even in junior high or middle school, and you'd ask him a question and he'd say, I can't, I have to think about that. Well, you know, you think to yourself, he's just putting you off, you know, but I mean, an hour later, he would come back and he would have the answer. I mean, he had thought about it and he had the answer, and they're remarkable.
Did they ever rebel as children or teenagers?
Not so much as children. James went through, especially, well, when John was, I don't know, 2 to 5, somewhere in there. James was a little difficult, I think, because John was getting some attention. I'm you know, it was just, you know, just a little bit of, probably not even as bad as most, but then in high school, James, you know, went with you know, he started smoking, and that just was very troublesome to us and that kind of thing, and he just wouldn't quit. But thank the Lord, he has come around. But as far as being rebellious, I can't really, they just didn't seem to be that way. No, they didn't ever go slamming doors and that kind of thing.
Okay. Were you excited when James got married?
Very. I mean, you know, yeah. She's just precious, and the way the Lord brought her into our lives, and she's a Christian, and so yes, we're just thankful for that every day.
And how's being a grandparent as opposed to being a parent?
You know, people always say, "Oh, it's different, it's better." I mean, you know, and it really. I mean, we were just such parents who were just so crazy over James and John. I mean, it's not. I can't really say it's better. You know, people say, "Oh, you can send your grandkids home." Well, we haven't gotten to that stage. I can't really see us wanting to send them home or send Lily home, but it's wonderful. I just can't say enough about it.
Okay. Did James ever tell you anything about him and Beth as far as anything funny that happened to them while they were dating?
James is not that kind of a talker anymore. I could get more out of Beth. Seems like, I'm sure she has. I mean, she's such a good wife that she won't tell a lot of things because she knows he doesn't want things to. But it seems like she has told me a couple of things. But Ashley, I can't think of them right now.
Okay. Do you have any advice that you want your grandchildren, if you have more grandchildren, or for now Lily, what advice would you give her as she grows older?
Just develop a genuine relationship with God. Learn about Him through His Word and the Holy Spirit making it real to you. That's the advice I would give to everybody, because that just tells you in every way how to live, how to be kind to people, how to be thoughtful, and so that's the advice I would give.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's about it. It's a good ending point. I appreciate your time.
Well, that was great. That was a very good ending point, actually. That was very good.
Okay, I appreciate it.
No, I enjoyed it. I probably got way too loose. I didn't really. It was really just too much like talking to you. I kept trying to think. Now, Linda, more like an interview, but no.
No, that's the way
it would
it's
just
supposed
be
to be.
talking.
That's the goal.
You want something to drink, Ashley?
No, thank you.